Good morning. Today is Thursday, April 9th, and something wonderful is happening. Now, before I get to that something wonderful, let's talk about the other side. Have you ever been in real deep darkness? Most people haven't. I'm talking about a darkness that is so deep you can almost feel it. Literally, you cannot see your hand in front of your face. It's too dark to see anything at all. When I think about that kind of darkness, I think about one experience that I had, and it was in a forest in Colorado on a cloudy night, and there was no light whatsoever anywhere to be seen. It was so dark that we had to walk along feeling with our feet as we went to be able to stay on the road that we were walking down. It was extremely dark, and if you were in that situation all by yourself, it could be utterly frightening to be in that kind of darkness. There actually are maps that you can look at. If you Google light pollution, it'll bring up a map for you to look at, and you can see where in the United States it gets truly dark. And it is surprising how few of those places there are in the eastern part of the United States. There seems to be a very distinct line drawn right down through the middle of the country, and I would point out it goes exactly down I-35 in Oklahoma. East of that, you see lots and lots of light. Very few places that ever get really dark. But then west of that, you begin to see lots and lots of dark places. It's very obvious where people live and where they don't live. But that map shows that this physical darkness never really allows for people or this physical light never allows for us to see the real darkness. Now, there is a purpose in those maps. Those maps are used largely by people who like to stargaze and go out and see the night sky. And we know that when we get into a very, very dark area, we can see the sky in a way that people who are in a more lighted area never get to see. Even if they don't live in a big city, there is this ambient light that blocks out many of the stars. And so when we are in those very dark places, we get to appreciate God's creation in a way that others might not ever get to do that. And so there is actually an advantage of being able to be in physical darkness. But what about spiritual darkness? Many people live in that spiritual darkness, and it's a very sad place to be. Now, you may expect me to compare the physical darkness to this thing that we are going through right now with this COVID virus, but the truth is we're not even close. Even at this time, with so much fear around, we still have humor. We still can have positive communication between us. There is even a happy communication that goes on between families and between friends because we have that ability to do that. And we are not in the utter darkness because we're beginning to see glimmers of light. There seems to be maybe a light at the end of this very dark tunnel that we are now in. Some places are seeing the number of cases of the COVID virus starting to plateau, level off. There are some places where the death rate is actually decreasing. And now they're saying that those forecasts that were made, where 100,000 Americans, or maybe sometimes many more than that, were forecast, would be dying from this virus, that forecast may not even be close. That the death rate may not ever get to be that big. And it's proof that our social separation from one another is actually helping right now. Hopefully by next flu season, there will be more help for this virus and things will never get this bad again concerning the COVID-19 virus. But again, going back to people living in darkness. The truth is that there are people that are living in a spiritual darkness right now. There are those that are actually fighting this disease, and for them right now the world may seem very dark. There are those who have lost loved ones, some to this virus, but many, many others who have recently lost loved ones for other reasons, and the cause of death really doesn't matter if it is your loved one. We have friends. Some of you are living in a darkness right now because of the loss of a loved one. There are those who are facing chronic illness that live in a certain amount of darkness. And there are those, for whatever reason, are facing a deep depression in their life. All of these things are identified as despair. If you look up despair, it identifies that as the complete loss of hope. Some people live there. This crisis has caused a lot of people to move toward despair. But no matter how much darkness there is in the world, we as Christians have a message that goes far beyond this. We have a message not only that we need to embrace, but that we need to share with others. Let me read to you from John, 1 John, the first chapter in that. And it says this: "This is the message we have heard from him and announced to you, that God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. If we say that we have fellowship with him and yet walk in the darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. But if we walk in the light, as he himself is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus his Son cleanses us from all sin." Notice that if we walk in the light, we have fellowship with one another. We have often in the past identified fellowship as those times that we get together. And yet this moment is proving to us that we share a fellowship that the world doesn't even know about. We share a walking in this light that allows us to see past this moment and to still long to be together physically, and yet we know that we are still united spiritually. This week on the calendar, the world is recognizing what we celebrate every week. That is the resurrection of Jesus, our Christ. His resurrection is our resurrection. His resurrection is our hope. Therefore, we need not ever live in despair. And then, as I said, something wonderful is happening. Something wonderful outside. Even at this time that many people seem to be kind of locked away in their homes, there is something wonderful going on outside. We call it spring. Trees are budding, flowers are starting to bloom, and occasionally we have warmer days. Now, we live in Oklahoma, so our weather often has an identity crisis, but the newness of this season is happening. So, church, let me encourage you this day to focus on the light, to look at what God has given us and the promises that he has set before us. Let me encourage you to walk in the light as he is in the light, and to recognize the fellowship that we have with one another. We get to see the light even when the rest of the world is focusing on darkness, because of the amazing gift that God has given us. So today, let me urge you, walk in the light, see the light, focus on the light, and let this be a wonderful day. Bye.